I Laid Down My Life for You is the latest album by JPEGMAFIA. It came out about a month ago. I did listen to it pretty much right when it came out. I'm not this late to it. If you've been keeping up with my channel, I've kind of been in a, what you could call a shit posting phase. I've done kind of some minor trolling with some of my recent videos, which has been fun to do, but I do still also want to do more serious formal videos like this as well, so just kind of had to do that for a little bit, if you don't mind. But it's kind of nice that it's worked out this way, that I'm reviewing the album this much later after it came out, because I've been able to give it more listens than I do most other albums that I review. Most of the time, at least 2 listens is good enough for me. Really 2 more often than not is enough listens for me to feel like I can review it. I take notes as well to help with me actually sitting down and analyzing it. But this one I've given now about 5 listens, a few trying to get a grasp of how I feel about it, how I would possibly critique it, I mean, in a video, and a couple more just for fun, just because of how much I like this album. I've heard people talk about how Taylor Swift reinvents herself with every one of her albums, and I'm like, okay, sure, each album of hers does sound different from the previous one, but it's not necessarily something entirely new that she's doing in her career, I would say. But I really do feel that way with Peggy. With each one of his albums, they all sound like something different, something new each time, as if Scary and the Hose wasn't so wild and unexpected as it was. This is something also just completely new and different. With Peggy's diverse sampling and production of this album, it spans genres from rock to metal to R&B, hyper pop. I felt even like a little bit of jazz influence with like the first track especially. Every song on this album sounds so different. None of them sound really that alike, but he still has this way of implementing these chord progressions, these tempo changes, whatever you want to point out, that give it that JPEGMAFIA feel. I don't know how else to describe it. If you've heard his albums, they all kind of have a similar vibe to them. Even with the jumping back and forth between different genres, different styles of production, there is a unique feel to all of them, which I think is awesome when an artist can achieve that, doing something so different and unexpected, but still have that comfort level to them.
Hey, it's me.
As far as the lyricism goes on this album, a good amount of it is kind of your typical Peggy route that you would expect from one of his albums. He talks shit. He likes to talk a lot of shit, typically in his songs, whether it's about someone's political stance or maybe their presence on social media. He also likes to talk shit on social media a lot, and for the most part I'm fine with it. I'm entertained by it. I typically do get a kick out of what he has to say regarding those things, but sometimes it's like, okay, I feel like you could lay off a little bit. I do find myself a couple of times through this album just being like, okay, I get it, you don't like people, I don't either, I get it. But now to go through some tracks on the album, some ones that I want to comment on. The first track, I Scream This in the Mirror Before I Interact with Anyone, is a really interesting, short, brief intro. Like one of the first lines, he references Dylan Brooks. If he'd be an NBA player, he'd be Dylan Brooks, but worse. Which, if you don't follow the NBA, Dylan Brooks is kind of known for getting in the faces of players, causing players to be upset, talking shit on the court.
After the stare down by Brooks, and LeBron just wouldn't return the favor.
He's actually, I think, a really solid player. Like, he's not a bad player at all. He's good. But I do just think it's funny that he kind of name dropped him in that way. I love the sample flip on I'll Be Right There. The strings sound great. It's one of my favorite instrumentals in the whole album. New Black History is a really solid track, a really weird sample of Future, but it actually works and makes for a catchy hook, and I like Vince Staples' feature a lot. And I like that he doesn't overshadow Peggy on here. This is still very much his song, even with how good of a feature Vince Staples has. And that's something that I'll say for all the features on this album, which there's only 3. Pretty much all of them except maybe one they don't overshadow Peggy. He still is like he's the star of the show on here, even with how quality and substantial their features are. Don't Rely on Other Men is an interesting song. I remember the first time hearing this, thinking, what is that sample, that vocal sample? But it was at the very end when I realized, oh, that's Logan Roy from Succession. That's, wow, weird choice of a sample, but it works. Also, the No More Tears interpolation, I assume it sounds a lot like that guitar part in the Ozzy Osbourne song near the end is a great touch too. And a great leeway into the very next track, Vulgar Display of Power, which is like this odd like metal anthem that pops up on this album. Also the title, I'm assuming again this is an intentional reference to the band Pantera. They have an album that's called Vulgar Display of Power. Honestly, this is kind of a song that is a little bit cringy, that kind of doesn't work on paper when you read the lyrics and the chants. You know, I bring the pain. You know, it sounds kind of dramatic and cheesy, but it doesn't play off that way at all. It's actually really cool. Exmilitary is a really good cut too. I feel like it's one of the more interesting songs lyrically too. He's not just talking shit. He's kind of telling a bit of a story here, and the title is an indirect reference to his time in the military as well. And that Wu-Tang Clan sample of the song Tears is so good too. JPEGUltra is a big highlight of the album for me, featuring Denzel Curry, who just sounds so great over this song, over these awesome horn samples. I'm so glad he had a song that sounded like this, because I remember loving Perfect off of Scaring the Hose, or Rebound off of the LP, so it was just great to see him returning to this sound. Very satisfying for me. This is probably my most listened song off this album, if I were to guess, as of now. And yeah, the Denzel Curry feature is just great too. It's very funny, and I love how the instrumental really has a big change whenever Peggy comes in and kind of makes way for his entrance in the song. I also love the next cut, Either On or Off the Drugs. This takes a 3/4 feel, which is a pretty nice switch up for the album. And it takes on more of an R&B kind of sounds, a little bit softer and low-key, and I just love the old-timey chord progression here too. Look It and Leave It, it's pretty funny short cut on here too. I made a funny video kind of with that song, and you may have seen it, but yeah. Don't Put Anything on the Bible is really good. Another great feature on here with Buzzy Lee. I was glad to see her on here because I liked when they had worked in the past a lot, so I think it's awesome that he brought her back. She sounds great on here, and I love the long acoustic buildup in her parts, then leading to the great beat switch when Peggy comes in. I feel like this second half of the song kind of sounds like In Rainbow's era Radiohead, which is great. I Recover From This is a very soft and somber ending track, very pretty. Really like the Janet Jackson sample on here. Definitely the opposite of the opening track. That one really comes in loud and in your face, and this one just kind of rocks you, kind of guides you to sleep. A lot of good stuff on here. I like nearly all the songs. I'm just very happy with how it turned out. I really feel like his albums just keep getting better, at least from his solo catalog. I'm not sure if I like this more than LP right now. They're very close, but I might. I don't know. If they're about the same quality, I would definitely say. Yeah, so with that said, I lay down my live review. For me, it's going to get a 9.5 out of 10. I think it's an excellent record. I would say, like, hopefully we don't have to wait 3 more years for the next solo JPEGMAFIA album, but if that's how long it takes to make something this good, then I don't mind waiting at all. Take your time, Peggy, if you're watching this. Please take your time to create whatever you want to next. Or if you don't want to make any more albums after this, that's fine too, because what we have is great. Anyways, don't want to elongate this video for too long. I'll kind of wrap it up here. Let me know what you think if you have heard this. If you have any standout tracks, let me know that too. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace out.